Now everyone, we're going to do a quick take on grids. Now grids are not a thing that I use. Let's go to this table here. I don't use grids. They're like tables, but I would really like that not to happen. They're like tables, but they're a display. So we're going to call this div here we're going to call this grido. And then we're going to we'll put in 6 columns. So we'll go div class equals grid thing, and we'll do this a few times. So just put in some stupid characters in there, whatever. And as I said, the difference between grids and tables is that tables you have to build yourself and then style them. Grids you just have to kind of place them and then display them. And you'll see what I mean in just a second. We'll do this. And we'll go 3. But if you notice, we're just putting in a div or a divider and characters. And we'll do 6. We'll just go like this. And I'm just putting a bunch of dumb stuff in there. And we'll go N. All right, and I want to show you this because again, it's kind of the strength of CSS3. As you can see, I have my guide here just in case, but it's kind of a strength of CSS3 where originally in HTML you would have to build this whole table. And then within it, you'd have to build all these headers and rows and data and everything like that. But here, we can just go, as I said, with the class referencing, grido, right? And grido, we can say display grid. Now, that's not going to do anything because we're not telling it exactly what to do with that grid. So if you could see here with something like this, you would say what the gap is, the columns and stuff. So if you'd say grid gap, and we'll go 10 pixels. Did I spell that right? I did it right. Yeah, grid up. See, now there's 10 spaces, but we want to display it in a certain way, so we can say grid template columns. You can say grid columns. So columns, right? And we'll just say auto. Right? And now you have this. And then you can kind of let's do a grid gap of 5 pixels. I don't like how wide that is. But now, as you can see, we've got this like grid. Now you can do this with display flexbox and stuff. But grid makes it a little bit easier if you have multi-tiered things. And now we can do a background color of RGB. And we're going to go 34. I'm going to get into colors, don't worry. We'll do colors later. Okay. We'll do colors in the next video. How about that? And then, I mean, you can't see anything because the fonts themselves, let's put grid thing. Let's say color white. That's what I call it, right? Grid thing, color white? Yeah, grid thing. And now you can see that we have this grid and everything, and it's got this background color. We can also do borders, right? So we have, we can put a border on these grid things. We can say border 2 pix solid black, right? And we'll do borders too. We'll get more into that stuff later. And you can see you have borders around them. But like, as I've said, and we can also do box shadowing. We're going to get into that too, don't worry. I don't want to like keep throwing things at you without explaining. We're going to explain all this stuff soon. Don't worry. You don't see anything. But, you know, and that's how you would do like a grid. So instead of having to go through, now if we wanted to to style this table, we can go table, and we could say border 2 picks solid black, and then the whole table would have it, and then we can say like table. Let's make sure it knows the parent and the child. I mean, in this sense, in this case, probably wouldn't matter because we only have one table, but let's say 2 picks solid black again. And this way, I only do anything. How about if I do table header? How about that? There we go. And then the header would have borders, but you notice why it didn't work the first time? Because I didn't distinguish which one. Now, if you wanted to, this is a good way to throw this in here. If you wanted to have the same styling principles for 2 separate entities, right? In this sense, we want to have a border around the table header and the table data. What you would do is and you can do this as many times as you want. You add a comma, and then you break that down too. And then CSS will figure it out. So always remember that you can just put a comma between, and you could do that for like for instance, we can take this out, and then we can go comma grid thing, and nothing's changed. So you can do it as many times as you want. You can mix it up with classes or parent-child references, whatever you want to do. But either way, CSS is going to know when you separate it by a comma that you're talking about 3 different things. And it will work for 3 different things. Again, this is not programming. This is coding. It's more or less text editing. There is some functionality to it, but it's more that the server is recognizing specific tags and specific rules that you're creating and then integrating it into its overall presentation. Again, we're requesting this. It's rendering based on the rules and the tags and then responding in this manner, right? Remember we were talking about respond, request. Let's do something with the grid thing. Let's change it to font. Font family. Mentioned font family before. We'll go Arial. We'll go Helvetica in case you can't get Arial, and sans serif. They're as close to Arial as you can get without actually having Arial, but I know any kind of browser doesn't have it. Or we can even do something like Courier. Courier is one that is in there. Right? Courier. And then we can go text align, and we can say center, center, and then we can go like, and then we'll go like this, and as you can see, it's centered here. Now, if we were to put a width on the grido, if we were to say width 500 pixels, right, now it looks a little bit more condensed. It's as wide as the page, more or less. But one thing that I want to point out to you is if you've noticed in all these pages, there is nothing here that we've programmed or we've coded, yet there's always this space. See this? It's not scrunched up against the corner. It's not scrunched up against the side. And this kind of works with this too. There's no, as you can see here, there's all this space that we didn't tell it to give us. When you have HTML, when you first open an HTML page, unless you tell it otherwise, there will always be an initial padding to the overall page or document, if you will. There will always be 5 spots of padding. Now this is just a little side thing you throw in there. what you can do with that, if you don't like this padding, is you can tell the entire site to get rid of that padding. You can tell the entire site, have no padding, have no margins, and we'll start from ground zero. And the way you do that is you do a star, meaning everything. Star in anything related to computers could mean, well, in this it can mean commenting, but typically it can mean all, or it can mean multiplication. In this sense, it's all. CSS, I've never seen it use star for multiplication anyway, but does anyone know the multiplication tables? But star in this case means the entire project. Every single thing that this CSS page is on, you can just completely denounce the padding and denounce the margin. And what that does is it will get rid of anything that would keep all of your content off the corners. In which case, you can then, from there, put your own padding and everything. That's just a little bit of a sidebar. When we start making sites, you're going to see me do that all the time. Because, or if you've already seen me make sites, I always do this. This is how you get it to this point where you're not pushing it off of anything. It's staying right on the corner where you tell it to. Now, going back to our grid, again, this is not a table. A table has its own base format. This is a grid that we've created on our own. So we can say to the grido, border or border radius, which means the border radius means the outside corners. And as you can see, there's just a little bit of a change. It's not much. You can see that the purple is kind of, because we have this border around the actual grid pieces themselves, but there's a little bit of a curve there. Now, if I got rid of this, you would then see that it's curved. But we can do what we want with that. We can do what we want with this grid. It's actually not, and there are more things you can do with grids. You can display them any which way you want. You can format them in any way. But that's really a grid, is a little bit of an extension on the display that we were doing before with the box, the flex box and stuff like that. With the grid, you can make it like a table. If you have multi-tiered, and we could just keep going on and on with this. We can keep adding more. We can keep adding more stuff. And it will just divide it up as it sees fit. That's the power of CSS3. So it'll just take that grid and everything that we add to it, it'll format it in whatever way. And as you see, we only put 2 in here, but there's another one empty here just to fill up that space. So grids are, if you're looking for tables, if you're looking to create tables, they're a nice way of doing it. I tend to go with tables nonetheless, but it's up to you. I mean, that is another way to use display, another way of formatting in CSS3, and it is privy to CSS3. CSS, I never had that in CSS originally. But now that we've done that, what we're going to do in the next video is we're going to go into colors. We're going to go into fonts, which I touched up on already, but I want to just show you a couple other things. We're going to go into some other styling aspects, but we're going to specifically go with anything related to coloring. So I will see you in just a second.